my parents still could not afford their American dream. I went to PS 84 in Brooklyn, then girls' high school, and then got a scholarship to Brooklyn College. It was there that for the first time I was debating race with others from different cultures.
The proposition for today's debate is the American dream is alive and well.
Hi, I'm Linda Savito, and I'm here because I believe the American dream is alive and well, and here's why. The way our system works is that there's a hierarchy, and the genius about this system is that with hard work, and hard work is not a bad thing, those at the bottom can make it to the top of the ladder like my parents did. That's the incentive that keeps everyone working and the American dream alive. My name is Shirley St. Hill, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposition. There are people like my parents who work as hard as anybody, but will not make it to the top of that ladder. Widespread poverty exists in America, one of the richest countries in the world, and one reason is because barriers are in place to keep certain groups at the bottom. That's the system you're promoting. The system I'm promoting is better than other systems in other countries, and that's why everyone flocks here. What? My African ancestors did not flock anywhere. They were taken, shackled, and shipped to this country and other countries like Barbados and Guyana, where they were enslaved. After my ancestors were freed, they were exploited. My parents came to the U.S. because they had to, but the same themes throughout America's history remain. Freedom denied, equality denied, economic leverage denied. I object to that characterization. We live in a democracy. Did you ever hear of the United States Constitution? And did you ever hear this? I do not recall in all history a nation appearing so well in its written words regarding human rights, and so badly when it comes to action. That's a quote by Archibald Grimke, a civil rights lawyer in the 1920s. Our democracy is on paper only, and that's what needs fixing. That's what needs fixing in order for the American dream to live. I did not win that debate. But it encouraged me to keep debating, telling others what people who looked like me were going through.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sujay, or Ambassador Sujay, and welcome to Live with Sujay, Conversations with Black Women Leaders. I'm always excited to have you in the conversation with us and to be in the living room with you, but I'm also excited to have someone in the living room with us. Ingrid Griffith, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm always excited to have you. And what you just saw was her portrayal of Shirley Chisholm. The black and white photo that you saw was the first African-American woman in the United States Congress. And I was alive to see her. I was there with the Congressional Black Caucus forming. And so she is doing a one-woman show, which will be done here at LTV, but also all over the world. Thank you for coming.
I'm great to be here. I'm so excited to tell you more and more about what I've been doing.
Oh, well, I'm excited to hear. So this would be the 100th birthday of Shirley Chisholm?
Yes, this year, 2024, is the 100th anniversary of her birth.
Yes.
She was, her birthday is November 30th. So it's an exciting year for me, I feel, because I want to keep telling this story and to celebrate her and with everybody that I meet.
So she was elected in an election month in November, but she was also born in an election month. So it's almost like her purpose for being here was to really change things.
I'm telling you, really, it was, and I really have to say, it's interesting you said that because she was a visionary, but I don't think she, as a kid, thought she would run for president.
Wow.
But it was, it just kept going in that direction, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly.
Circumstances, and she was saying, I guess I'm the one to speak up. I'm the one to keep this thing going, and there we
Yes.
are.
Her life aligned with her purpose,
That's
which was
right.
important. Now, she was an immigrant, and why is it important for you to tell this story?
Well, her parents were immigrants.
Mhm.
She is American.
Mhm.
She was born in America. She was born in Brooklyn in
Yes.
1924.
Wow.
But the clip that you saw is her talking about her parents' immigrant experience, in the sense that her dad was from Guyana, her mom was from Barbados. They met in Brooklyn, got married, and had children.
Yes.
And Shirley and two of her siblings, they were a total of four, but at that time there were only three. They were sent to Barbados
Wow.
during the Great Depression because things were hard,
Yes,
getting a
yes.
job, saving, making money, the whole thing. And Shirley came back to the US at age 10.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So she left at 3, came back at 10. And then the clip you saw is her saying about, my immigrant parents, they work hard, but they're not getting that American dream. They're unable to make it to the top of that ladder. She was in a debate with one of the students, one of her
Yes.
classmates at Brooklyn College.
Okay, so she was a Brooklynite. We know that.
That's right.
But talk to us a little bit about her childhood. I mean, she definitely had some struggle. Her parents had struggles.
Yes.
What was her ascension to the top? What was her breakthrough?
Well, I think her breakthrough was getting to Brooklyn College, which is a big deal at that time.
Yes, it was.
Because she says, women that time, they weren't going to college. They weren't getting scholarships.
Yes.
Black young women.
Yes.
And so Black young women were doing like menial jobs.
Yes.
And she said, the character plays Shirley, I say, that's not going to happen to me. So it was a determination that she had to strive. She's a striver. So once she got into Brooklyn College, I think she started speaking up.
Yes.
And at these debates, and she got into Political Science Society.
Yes, yes.
And so she got more involved in politics and about her community and about rights. And
So when you strive, you thrive is really
That's
what
right.
it's all about. But let's talk about your one-woman show. That clip we saw is part of a show that you're going to be doing, not just at LTV, but elsewhere.
Yes.
Tell us why it was important to you to do this one-woman show. And, you also wrote it. It's
Yes.
not that you were just performing in it. Just tell us what got into you to say, I need to steer this story.
Well, I did not know the story before, but I saw a documentary. And then when I saw the documentary, I said, you know what? I could play Shirley Chisholm. And I said, you know what? I better start researching. Of course, I was, and on the side, I was listening to hear if a script would be happening and if I can audition, because that would be so easy.
But there was no
There
script.
was no script then. So I decided to research her story, and then I started writing it. And I thought a vehicle for me is her story. Why? That immigrant experience that I found out.
Yes.
Her parents, their background was very similar to mine.
And where are your parents from?
I am from Guyana.
Ah.
I'm an immigrant.
Yes.
I grew up in Guyana until I was 12 years old, and then moved to Long Island, rejoined my parents in the US.
Yes.
So I knew what that immigrant experience was like, that she was talking about. She was speaking on behalf of her parents, but she also had slightly of an immigrant experience because she was in Barbados at 3 and came back at 10. So she felt like an immigrant.
Yeah, definitely. So we celebrate Black culture on the East End. So we've got to celebrate you as well.
Oh,
I understand you won the Susie Ball playwright competition.
It's the Susie Bass playwright.
Wonderful.
In Atlanta.
Wow.
There's such a professional theater organization. I was in Atlanta last year around this time. I performed for 8 weeks, and they recommended the show.
I love it. I looked at it because she's Susie with a Z and I'm Susan with a Z.
Oh, that's
so we
right.
connected on that.
That's right.
But how wonderful to win that award.
It was, because it was something that was sort of like not regular theater, my theater, my show. It's a solo show.
Yes.
It was being offered in homes and not in theater spaces, but word of mouth got around and people started coming to see the show in people's homes, and reviewers started coming. And so last October, I won, the show won for its production.
So that's October 2023.
2023.
Yeah.
And I was nominated Best Solo Show Performer.
Wonderful.
So
We want the word to get around
yes.
out here in the Long Island, where you're from, and
That's right. I'm from Wyandotte.
Oh
We're
my
up in
goodness.
Wyandotte.
Yeah, we call that upstate or up island.
Up island.
But you're still part of us, and we're so glad to have you.
Yes, thank
So
you.
tell us, what do you hope audiences will feel from this experience or learn from this experience?
I am hoping that they know more of our history. I hope that I know they will be empowered. I really want them to know that so many things happened before our time
Yes.
that are so important for us to bring with us.
Yes.
And that helps to kind of keep us staying on track in a way.
Yes.
Instead of having the story have to start over again.
Yes.
We should be taking the baton and moving it forward, and also feel responsible to move it forward.
Very
like
much.
I've become that type of person these days.
I love it.
I'm an activist. I
Yes.
really want this story to be heard by millions and everybody that I can find, especially younger audiences, because they don't know the story. I didn't know it before, and
So you're using the arts for social justice and activism.
That's right. That's what I tell myself these days. I'm an artist, and it's like the artist meeting the social activism,
I love it.
and that's where I feel I found my purpose. I actually feel I found my purpose because of this story. I didn't know where I was going for a long time.
Wow.
And it makes sense.
It makes a lot of
It
sense.
makes a lot of sense, and especially these days, this time that we're in, we need to be speaking up.
Yeah, it's not just about learning the history, as you said, but what is the responsibility
Really?
going forward? I just took a group of Black female faith leaders to Ghana, West Africa, and it's certainly a moving experience, seeing where the slaves were in the
Sure.
dungeons and put forth. And then I just got back from Brian Stevenson's Legacy Museum, seeing where the ports were, and it's a very emotional experience, but it's what will you do next?
That's right.
What will you do with this experience now that we know our history? And a lot of it has not been told to us correctly, or it hasn't been told at all.
Right.
But you're one of the ones filling the gap. So what's your next?
My next is to keep telling this, but I also have something in mind. I did my immigrant story. I did a solo show before this one about my immigrant story. And that is something I really want to share in a different way. And I'm trying to see if I can make it a script.
Wow.
Maybe like a film.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. And then, of course, I have another solo show of course, a Black woman in mind that I don't know much about. She was before my time, but I really think we need to share her story as well and be empowered by it.
So how are your shows funded? I mean, it takes a lot to tour, to do costuming, and to perform, and to make a living. How do you get funding?
One-woman band.
Okay.
I've gotten some funding, very small awards, which are very helpful. And I'm always trying to apply, to get some more funding. But besides waiting for that, I just call organizations. I contact colleges, I contact high schools, I contact local theaters, and I say, this is a show. And I send out my proposal, and I send out my clips and my website. And so I'm marketing it to organizations. I'm telling people that it's here. I think, and I feel the content is the right content. I know it is. And I just want to find those people to tell them, hey,
who will receive what you have.
Yes, who I'm looking for it.
So in Atlanta, you were doing it in homes.
Yes.
So who would invite you? Would it be people who were impactful in those communities and they would call their friends and neighbors?
Sort of. It was an organization, though, that reached out to me. And they do shows at homes. They don't have a theater space.
Oh, wow.
So they find artists like myself, because it has to be very contained, right? It can't be like 10 actors. It's usually solo shows. And they have donors and patrons who are interested in bringing the show into their spaces and inviting their friends.
Oh my goodness, that's
so
amazing.
I was there for 8 weeks, and every show was a different home.
So that's really what you call home theater.
Home theater, yeah. Traveling theater, home theater.
Yeah, I love it.
And I've never heard about it, but I really want to put it out there. Like, you can do this too, whoever you are.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's special places where artists go, though, in terms of really applying and finding funding and applying for grants, etc. Are there enough places for you to really tap?
There are. It's a process, and I'm an actor and I'm a writer. Now I've been and so now I have to find ways to
yeah,
apply,
exactly.
to learn that process, because
Mhm.
it's also a process.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it takes time. So sometimes I just say, oh, I wish I could just work,
Mhm.
and then there are times I stop and I'm not working and I say, okay, time to
To
do
go
this
back, yeah,
application.
exactly.
So
Go back to
it's
the
the
drawing board.
balance. It's the doing everything and
So you've
finding.
done stage, and Regina King has done the film about
Yes.
Shirley. What's television in the works?
For this show?
Yes.
I would love it.
Okay, so someone has to approach you.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I have some ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
It could
think
be
it could be a series.
I think it's also. I think it really could.
Because what I do, my show is I do from the 10-year-old, when she comes back to the U.S., to her at the concession speech in 1972,
Yes.
right? Conceding.
Because she ran for president as well.
That's where I
Was she
stopped.
the first female to run for president? Or the
For a
first
major
black one?
party, the first African American
Mhm.
man or woman, she was the first African American to run for president under a major party, a major
I
political
remember
party.
that so well.
Yes, there were other women that did it running independently.
Yes.
Over the years before
Mhm.
her, but not for a major political party. She's the first.
So the concession speech, do you remember who she was running against at the time?
McCarthy.
Yes.
And she, I have my show ends when I make the concession speech, but it sounds like a victory speech.
Okay.
Because I've changed the whatever she said.
Yeah.
And I am saying, women, we got to do it together. It's time. This I've paved the way. Now you guys got to come on top of
It
me.
was a victory speech,
was.
actually, because
It really was.
to even make the move, to have the courage to make the move,
That's right.
and the conviction,
Right.
it was a victory speech. So when you have her life from 10 to victory speech, how do you choose which parts to portray? I mean, and how long is your play?
Okay, so in terms of the choices, that was my process as an actor. What I wanted to do was, as a playwright, what I wanted to do is find characters that are going to move it along, but also find characters that can be like a composite of many people she encountered. For instance, there's a politician who really wanted her to run for the New York State Assembly.
Yes.
Right? He was part of her group, the UDC, the
Yes.
United Democratic Committee. But he heard other people saying in the group that they couldn't vote for her because she's a woman, and there are other men that needed to endorse.
Yes.
And he backed out.
Wow.
So I wanted that character to be in the play.
Definitely.
Because I wanted to show that there were people that were almost with her, and
Yes.
there are those kinds. And then there are people that they were always with her. I wanted to show that too.
Exactly.
And then I wanted to show people that were never with her.
Exactly.
And that maybe came around.
Mm.
Or people that never were with her and never did come around.
Exactly.
So it was like I needed to find characters to show the nuance, the palette of people and that she encountered during her career and over the years, how some stayed the same.
And then some never change. So we saw an excerpt of it last year in Southampton, and we were really impressed. There was a group of us who came. We saw some flyers, and we came. But wasn't there a part about her husband and her dancing and the things she did for her personal life? Talk to us a little bit more, because we know the politician and the public figure, but tell us about the private life.
Yes, and I really wanted to bring in the private life in my story.
Yes.
And so it tells us about when she meets her husband. His name is Conrad, and she called him Ratty.
Yes.
And they were very like-minded, and that's sometimes, in a way back then, it's for a man to say, you go be the politician leader and I'll support you.
Yes.
For me, I felt he was impressive to me.
Very impressive.
For that time.
Yes.
So
even for this time, but yes.
So I wanted to show that I wanted to show that relationship. So he was very supportive, and he had his business and she was doing her thing, and the relationship it worked, but then at a certain point it didn't. And I wanted to show that too, how, the trade-off that we all have to make.
Yes, exactly.
And how the public affects the private, and the private affects the public, and the decision, the
tension that's there. There's tension. Yeah, exactly.
And
definitely.
the love that was also there. But then the decision, eventually they divorced.
Yes.
But we see that relationship, and we see how it was so supportive. and I really wanted that.
And it helps you understand there are a lot of female politicians or public figures who don't have a mate or who had to divorce their mates. But it helps us to see what you said, the word trade-off.
Yes.
There's tension and there's trade-offs.
Yes.
And this doesn't mean you fall out of love. It just means that your paths become different.
That's right. I think they always loved each other.
Yes.
She remarried. He never did, but I think it was a special relationship, and that's also a choice. So
Yes.
that's why I wanted to bring him into the mix, because you're seeing the full human being.
Yes.
You know, and she flawed and otherwise, like just like us, right?
Exactly.
She's going through the same thing. You know, she has to leave her husband, and she's in Albany most of the week, and then she comes home, and then just get back out on Monday.
Exactly.
What's that? You know.
So in addition to dancing, what else did you find about her?
Besides loving to dance, she loved to play the piano.
Really?
She also was, she did poetry. She wrote poetry, which I thought was lovely. And she was very creative. She was, you know, she liked kids. Of course, she was a teacher, and she taught young.
Did she ever have children of her own?
Never had children of her own.
Okay.
No. Oh, the other thing that I found out is she spoke fluent Spanish.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And you portray her well because it was sort of a little lisp there as well.
She also had a lisp.
Okay.
And I really wanted to share that too. And that was one of the adjustments I was like not sure about that I wanted to do, because I wanted to make her not a laughable character. You know, sometimes
Yes.
people are like, oh, or were you busy listening to the lisp and not to what she's saying? Or
Yes.
listening to me try to have a lisp. You know,
You handled it well, though. Very
thank
well.
you. So
Yeah.
it was something that came on late in the whole process, and I'm really glad I made the decision to do that, because it is Shirley Chisholm.
Yeah, you can't ignore that it was
No.
there, but you handled it very well because it was never distracting. It was just part of her character,
Right.
characterization.
Vision.
So
That's
you've
right,
handled
who
that
she
well.
was.
So tell us some of the places, Atlanta, tell us other places you've
Yes, I've been to Atlanta about 10 times.
been.
Since I came back in 2023, I just got back about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I was in Washington, D.C. I was in Barbados.
Oh, nice. So
I-
you went to, okay.
Yes, in
her
Barbados,
hometown.
her mom's hometown.
And how were you received there? I'm interested.
Very interesting. They know everything about Shirley Chisholm. So it was well received, but I think they didn't know all that I offered, which is also good because I brought some new information.
Yes.
Like her husband, he was Jamaican.
Yes.
So they didn't know all that. They didn't know sort of like the process, like when did she ran for president, you know,
Yes,
the
yes,
years.
yes,
the,
yes.
The
The chronology,
yes,
yeah.
So it got more specific for them.
Okay.
I also took it to Guyana, where I'm from, because Shirley Chisholm's dad was Guyanese. So I did that, and I thought it was well received as well.
Did she have any other relatives who are still alive, or most of them are deceased?
Most of them are deceased, but she has relatives in
Barbados?
New York. No,
Oh.
I think more in New York than in Barbados or Guyana.
Nice.
So as far as I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you know how it is with the immigrant experience.
Sure.
Everybody wants to come to America, number one, and
Yes.
then it's generations ago. So now generations have had their children here, and so she has I know she has nieces that are here, and So
Will junior high and high school audiences be able to get this?
I shared it with a high school audience at Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor. They loved it. And I have to tell you, the staff at Bay Street said, we've never heard such a quiet, it was so quiet there.
My
They were
goodness.
listening.
My
Because they said, kids, right?
I know
They
kids.
get, bored and they're thing, and then they get on their phones or they want to go to the bathroom. They said nothing like that. And we had a great talk back.
I was going to ask you, so what kind of questions come up in their Q&A?
Well, the first thing is, where did she get the idea that she wanted to be president? Did she have children?
Yes.
That's the next question. Did she have pets?
Oh, wow. Okay. They really want to go deep into her life.
Her personal life.
Yes. Because we don't really get to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the awesomeness
Yes.
of the leaders,
Yes.
and what she did was certainly courageous and outstanding. But we never get to kind of see the peak, and that's why I was so glad. I remembered the dancing.
Right.
I remembered that out of all the things because we knew Shirley, the public figure,
That's
the
right.
politician, the world changer. She changed the game.
She changed the game.
You know, and creating. She was the only woman on the Congressional Black Caucus of the first 13 that
Wow.
founded it. So I remember her standing out and being outstanding both
Yes,
ways.
yes.
But you also taught us about how she strived, but she also thrived, and I
That's
think
right.
that's so important.
Yeah, and you know what else I think for the younger audiences, they get to say, "Oh, so she had a dream and she made that dream come true."
Yes.
And look at all the obstacles because there were so many things that were happening in her as a child.
Yes.
And so it gives them that kind of feeling of, I can do that
I can
too.
just
It's
follow
not
my
like,
dream.
I don't have to be perfect
Right.
to run for president in the sense that,
Right.
a flawless.
But I have to bring me, all
I
of
have to
me.
bring all of me, lisp and all.
Exactly.
And that is why it was important for me to make that adjustment.
So I always ask my audience members, my guests, A plus B plus C equals success. What's your A plus B plus C before we close?
Well, my A was my dream.
Okay.
My B was finding a platform. My C was walking the talk.
Wow, I like that. Dream plus platform, walking the talk.
And D is finding joy as I do what I'm doing.
That's important.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
Not just chasing your dream but finding joy.
Yeah.
And you said you found your purpose now. This is what you want to do, who you are.
Yes, I want to keep sharing, telling stories like Shirley Chisholm's story and empowering audiences and empower them to act.
I love it.
Make change happen.
Well said. So I just left Atlanta after Alabama, and of course that's Martin Luther King country and King country,
Yes.
and he had a dream. And so I'm just so glad to share your dream with our audience. And I hope that you'll be able to come with us for our Celebrating Black Culture on the East End that we're doing now annually, and that you'll be one of the voices, because you are a Long Islander.
That's right.
So we appreciate your coming today.
I'm
We
on.
thank you for sharing with us for Live with Sujay. And we're celebrating Black women leaders. And today we celebrated Ingrid Griffith. And she's phenomenal. She'll be doing a show at LTV. But look for her all around the world. Go to her website, which is
Unbossedunbowed.com. Unbossedunbowed.com.
And you've been with us today. Shirley Chisholm's book was Unbought and Unbossed, and her title is Unbossed and Unbowed. She didn't bow down for anything. And so today we close Live with Sujay. Thank you for joining us.